US GDP numbers just out, and the world's largest economy shrank by 4.8% in the first quarter. That's the sharpest contraction since the 2008 financial crisis. Now, for the latest, Simon Marks joins us from Washington, D.C. So, Simon, numbers largely in line with expectations.
Yeah, a little bit worse than some of the projections, Glenda. These numbers have just been published. They show that GDP in the first quarter of the year contracted by 4.8%. Consumption fell 7.6% and business investment fell 8.6%. And the important thing to remember about all of this is that this is covering the first quarter from January through until the end of March. And of course, the public health state of emergency here wasn't declared by President Trump until relatively late in that period, the beginning of March. So the numbers for January, which presumably would have been relatively healthy given that coronavirus and the pandemic had not arrived on US shores, certainly at that point, are being very, very heavily dragged down by what must have happened to the economy during February, late February, and throughout March. And so the markets, I think, will look at this for a couple of different reasons. First of all, they know that these GDP numbers are always revised later in the year. And it may well be that this negative 4.8 number gets driven further down as more data is understood about what was actually taking place in the economy. But also they suggest that the numbers for the second quarter, which of course we're right in the middle of, are going to be far, far, far worse than the numbers for the first quarter. So all of this points once again to the idea that the United States is indeed now in a very, very deep economic slump as a result, of course, of the shutdown of business activity that COVID-19 has engendered.
Simon, about a dozen states have begun reopening their economies. As much as this could perhaps help to turn the tide around, it could also pose the problem that it could lead to more cases of coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a real difficult choice that governors of American states all over the country are having to make. As you know, President Trump welcomed the governor of Florida to the White House yesterday, absolutely giving him the presidential imprimatur for moving forward and opening Florida's economy. Remember that Ron DeSantis in Florida was very slow to close it in the first place. The Trump administration wants to see the economy moving back into a positive direction in order to try and stem the tide of these absolutely dreadful numbers. And remember, we'll have more jobs numbers coming out soon. These are just a part of an avalanche of dreadful numbers that will serve as the backdrop for President Trump's re-election campaign all the way through until November. But there's another set of numbers that everyone is very heavily focused on here, and that's more than 1 million cases confirmed of coronavirus all over the United States, north of 55,000 fatalities, with that number continuing to move tragically upwards. And so this is a very complicated tightrope that the president is now having to walk as far as the economic future of the country is concerned.
Yeah, difficult times ahead. Thanks very much for that update. Simon Marks speaking to us from Washington, D.C.